Is it too late to make it in today's economy? For some of you, it is, and I'm going to tell you why. First, you won't make it because you don't know what it means to make it. What even is success to you? To some people, success might be things that others would consider very basic. Some people live paycheck to paycheck, and making it might just mean that there's money left over at the end of the month, that they're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. For some people, it might mean getting out of debt. It might mean having enough money to buy a nice car, live in a nice neighborhood. It might mean yachts and the lifestyle of a multi-billionaire. So making it is a very broad term, and to different people, this is going to mean different things. So you need to consider what that means to you. Until you know what that means to you, you're not going to have a mental conception of what that even is. So even if you got there, you wouldn't know it. Now, once you know what making it means to you, the first step is always going to be the hardest. It's no different with this than it would be with any other kind of habit or lifestyle change that you're trying to make. If you're trying to start working out for the first time is always going to be the hardest. It's hard to get on that gym mat the first time, but once you have a habit there, you have a routine, it becomes a little bit easier. If you have a diet that you're trying to start, well, when you have all the junk food around you, it's really hard to make the decision to start eating healthy, to make a chicken salad when you have the sleeve of Oreos right there still open. But once you get rid of the bad stuff and you make a habit of eating healthy, suddenly you can find your groove, you can find your routine. Or maybe you're trying to get used to waking up early. Setting that alarm to 5 o'clock for the first time, if you're used to getting up at 9, that's murder. That is a crime against humanity. But once you've done it once, twice, 3 times, you start to get used to it. Your body adapts to that. So the takeaway from all that is that the first time is always the hardest. But once you've done it a few times, you can start building that momentum. Now, that doesn't mean it ever gets easy. It's never easy in itself. Lifting the heavy weight is never easy. Turning down the junk food for the healthy food, well, probably is not going to be easy for most people most of the time. However, it does become a habit. It does become part of you. And that's because you have taken those behaviors, those ways of life, and you've integrated them into your personality. You have really made that part of who you are. And once you integrate those changes in your lifestyle into your character, well, that's when it's actually becoming part of you. It's not just things you do, it actually is you. In much the same way, setting financial goals is very similar. That first time sticking to a budget is very difficult, but after a while, it becomes a lot easier because you've integrated being responsible with your finances into who you are. So you can't push it to the side anymore. You can't forget about it because now you're somebody who takes it seriously. You are somebody who cares about those things, who wants to be responsible. And until you take that first step to become somebody who takes control, you don't know what it means to be somebody who's made it. If you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going. And that takes us into point number 2. You don't know where you are, so you can't know where you're going. Has it been a while since you dreamed of your financial goals, since you allowed yourself that freedom to imagine a better place, something beyond just the routine that you're doing? Are you tired of being beaten down by the daily grind of wake up, go to work to a job that you don't like, make money that's not great, spend it all on groceries, spend it all on the mundane and trivial things that you don't want to spend your money on, but you have to? Has that beaten you down? Has it dragged you out? Or maybe you stopped setting goals after your dreams failed. Maybe it became easier for you to not imagine who you could become or who you wanted to be. Turning a blind eye and refusing to acknowledge, these are defense mechanisms at the end of the day. These are things that we use to protect our egos, because if we don't know what we really want, what we wish we could do, or what we wish we could be, and we don't let others know that either, then they don't know and we don't know either when we fail. So I think something that we have to do is consider where we want to be. But before we do that, we need to know where we are. So take inventory. You need to go through, you need to see your financial statements, you need to see where your money is going to, where it's coming in from. Get a mental snapshot of that. And then once we have this understanding, that's when we can look 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, however many years it might be, that we can plan in the future and start dreaming again. But I know that that might be a long time, and it is a long time. What we might need to do is to cut those time frames back. Maybe you can really only manage to think a month out, maybe a week out, or in some cases, maybe it's just a day. Maybe you can only think to the end of today. What do I have to do to make it just to the end of today? Because maybe you are so busy, things are so tight, so stressful, that you can't even think that far ahead. And if that's the case, that's fine. We can break it down into those small increments. All that matters is that we set ourselves up to be in a better place by the end of that time period, whether that's one day, a month, a year, or a decade or two. We need to set ourselves up to be in a better place than we were where we started. And speaking of being afraid of planning for the future and thinking ahead, that is the third thing that will keep you from ever being successful with what you want out of life, and that is fear. So maybe I'm just weird, but bear with me for a second. When I was in college, I had a horrible fear of ever checking my grades, to the point where midterms would come or finals would come, and other people, they would want to see their grades as soon as possible. They wanted to know if they did good, if they did bad, whatever it may be. I hated it. I guess I never completely failed because I never had to retake anything, but I would wait until the next semester when I knew I was in the clear to actually go into my grades and see how I did, because I didn't want to know. It was more stressful to know whether it was good or bad. Just the fear that could be bad, that was enough to make me not want to see my grades. I think for a lot of us, finances are very similar. We would rather not look at our bank statement. We would rather not open those accounts, see where our money is, how much we have. And the reality is that for many of people, it might actually not be as bad as the fear itself. But if you can't get over that fear, you're never going to be able to do step number 2 we talked about before, which is knowing where you are. Whatever it is that scares you most about your personal finances, taking control, taking inventory, if that's going through your bank statements or setting up a budget, these are the things that we should do first, because it is these things that are keeping you back. It is the fear of these things that is preventing you from taking that first step that you need to take in order to get a little bit of control. Now, I know that all of this sounds very simple, but the reality is that it is very simple. I think many of the things in life that hold us back, that we don't ask, are really questions that we already know inside. We just either, 1, we might want reassurance, or 2, we might not really want to know the answer. But at the end of the day, many things come down to just doing it anyway. And it's so simple that we take it for granted. You don't want to get up in the morning, you get up in the morning. You don't want to make breakfast, you make breakfast. You don't want to make dinner, you make dinner. You don't want to clean your house, you don't want to clean your apartment, you don't want to go to work. You do all these things regardless, because you know that you have to. Well, this is the same thing. It operates the same way. If this is something that is important to you, and I would propose that it should be important to everybody, it's something that you just have to do. And if it's really hard, if it's very difficult, I don't discount that at all. But I would think to something that Churchill once said, famous quote, "If you're going through hell, keep going." It doesn't get better where you are right now. So staying there, hoping that it will, doesn't make any sense. Your only hope is to forge on and to strive for a better tomorrow. Unless you take the first step and force yourself to do it, you'll never make it. But the reality is that you can make it, and doing it today, starting today, is the best guarantee you can give yourself to ensure that you do make it. It's the best way to make sure that the things that you want from yourself and out of life don't leave you behind. So with that, I'll leave you with that very simple message. And as a wise man once told me, get after it.